Today, I got a message from somebody on Instagram, which was really interesting, and it talks about masculinity and sex. And this is something that myself and in my groups, my communities, we discuss heavily. And it's important. I know this topic shuts a lot of people off. They think it's cheap, they think it's dirty, they think it's wrong. And yet this is one of the great problems that men and women are having within our culture. Our inability to talk about sex means that we are handicapping the true nature of the masculine and feminine. And I want to stay away from a lot of the crazy abstract stuff. In my personal life, I do like those things. But when it comes to coaching men for 17 or 18 years, specifically around sex, around trauma, around pain, around dysfunctions that revolve around men in our modern culture through the way that we have sex and do sex, I have a lot of experience in it, and I have more experience than most. And not only that, of teaching thousands of men and leading them through this, by me leading them, that doesn't mean just I point in a direction and go. I have taken them from points of extreme pain with their sex and sexuality, their relationships, their emotions, and everything that affects, and led them all the way through to a sense of completeness. And I just want to make this clear. That sense of completeness isn't the image that your pain says is the reward. Meaning, if you're lonely, that doesn't mean an excess of women and power over them. Or if you have erectile dysfunction, it doesn't mean that you lord over the world with a powerful penis or whatever it is. What it means is that we find functionality of that. We fulfill that. We heal the pain, which is a long process. And then we move on to what the true nature of you is, the true nature of man and sex. That is a pretty long intro, but let's get into this. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Steve Maeda. I'm a men's coach. I've been doing this for a long time, and I've had my online community since 2009, but I started coaching in 2006. And during that time, I talked to men about all sorts of issues. And right away, as a dating coach, which is how I started, and I still do that, I'm not ashamed of it by any means. I think that's a huge problem in our culture, that old school dating coaches didn't get to the resolve of what they were doing and why they were doing it, and now say, oh, I've moved on to this other thing, or that was in the past. But I started out there, and immediately what I realized and what I wish more men talked about was men were in severe pain in our culture. And they were in severe pain, and the outlet to fix that pain was sex and sexuality. That was one of them, but that wasn't necessarily the origin of the pain. The pain could have been so much. It could have been growing up in a broken home or not having positive male or female role models. And what's interesting is that created this huge market, which was pretty much BS, and there was some reality in it. I'm kind of going off on a tangent here, but this is a big theme in the book that I'm in the midst of writing and editing and all the crazy stuff, and I'm supposed to put in a lot of hours on that today. We'll see with getting this video up on YouTube. I don't know. In any case, men in our modern culture have pain. You can't deny it. A lot of it revolves around sex, and then the solution to that is sold over and over again by this voracious market, whether it's trying to sell you on self-help, erectile dysfunction, lack of porn, bedding women, all this sort of different stuff. The culture of pain has created a market that is false, that's cheaply handed out and sadly perpetuated by so much desperation with masculinity and femininity. When it comes down to sex and sexual health, it isn't an image. It isn't something which is one specific way. And this is really important to get, that at many times throughout my life in achieving sexual health, I've been promiscuous. I've dated multiple people. I've been celibate for a very short amount of times. That is the least practiced of all of them. I've also been monogamous in so much of it. And what's important is we need to start seeing is sex as not a tool of pain or something that we need to fear, but an expression of our truest self. It is what defines you as a man. And of course, we have both masculine and feminine within us, but part of the most amazing interaction of all things that we see in this modern world is the interaction of that masculine and feminine. And if that masculine and feminine is flawed, if it is afraid, if it is in pain, it cannot function. Now, we see this with like the red pill guys reacting to the feeling and sense of disempowerment culturally through many different means. That could be feminism, that could be PC culture, and so on, as saying that we need to gain power as a man. We need to take it back and we need to move to whatever authority. One of the great problems that we have with the red pill is it's many men who have unchecked pain. And a lot of the leaders in the red pill are just, they're men only seeking power. And I'll talk about this a little bit because I've lived and currently live in a male-dominated culture that is infused with poverty. And you see the weakest male come out of that. This is where men actually get to do whatever they want. They get to have that power. The women respect them. The women respect them sexually. The women will allow them to have multiple partners. They work. They have strength. They also beat their women. Not everybody, but there's a huge amount of addiction. There's a huge amount of lostness. There's a huge amount of nothing. There's a huge amount of worthlessness. And there's a huge amount of male anger and rage taken out on the feminine. And what you see there is the feminine could use some help. They could use some assistance. It could use something like feminism. The problem with American feminism, this is in South America of what I'm talking about, but the problem with feminism in North America is we already have a lot of those powers. Women are not under the threat of being beaten in the same way that they were. I get it that there's problems. I'm not trying to diminish those. Those are very real. They need to be addressed, but they don't need to be addressed by attacking men. When that happens, it creates reactionary movements of men that are in so much pain, they only seek power. The delusion of men who are really bought into a lot of different red pill stuff or kind of men's movement stuff, or like the hysteria, the opposite reaction to disempowerment, is they have this fantasy of what men are supposed to be. Now, another thing which we'll probably see a little bit more on this channel coming up, I got to get the authorization for one from the different leaders and whatnot, is at this point I've spent a considerable amount of time with tribal leaders, elders, people who would be, the great kings of an entire nation of people and indigenous groups and so on. In that, I've never seen what Pickup said or the red pill says of how men act. I've seen male-dominated cultures in that. I've seen female-dominated cultures in that. And I have not seen what is this distilled kind of version of anthropology that people then move into theories about how men and women should act. It's very, very different. And I would encourage you, actually, if this is a passion of yours, to study the nature of man and the nature of woman, to go and do it. It might take some time. You might have to talk to the right people. You might have to get introductions, but that's what I did. And I don't understand why nobody in the paleo movement did this. I don't understand why people in the red pill don't do this. The red pill and the men's movement is this horrific tragedy of male pain that just wants to blame and sound smart, but doesn't do any work. To this day, and just for the record, who in the red pill has come up with divorced products for men? So men who can navigate the court system and get custody of their kids. Who has done that? Everybody just complains about it. But I have proven that it is possible to do that. And I've taught men to do that. I did it myself. And I have a criminal background of where I should not have this happen. This is crazy. Who in the red pill has helped men with addiction and depression and real tools of that instead of just theories of why it's wrong? Nobody. Nobody's doing this. Once again, who's going and living with different indigenous cultures and seeing the nature of man and women? Nobody's doing this. It is the biggest fanboyship of BS intellect there is. I'm not trying to be an intellectual. I'm just trying to be a man that coaches his people and does what he needs to do for his people. That being said, back to sex, one of my favorite topics. So sex manifests itself in so many ways. Our bodies are meant to feel it. Our urges are meant to experience it. What I see a lot in indigenous cultures and how sex happens is it's very, very different. And if these cultures have multiple generations or have been around for 400, 500 years through some trackable history, which there are cultures like that in existence, they usually have a really established way of having sex and interacting. And like I said, some are matriarchal, some are patriarchal. And some you can't really determine, like, they're patriarchal, but in what way? They're kind of not in other ways. It gets all confusing. You just got to experience it to be a part of it. The thing is that when people are born into their body, they take on a male or female form. in that there's urges that come along with it. And there's urges that are particular to a man, they're particular to a woman. In our culture, we're given this evolutionary drive to have sex, and it's exploited in all these ways through advertisement. I mean, we don't ever talk about that. We should talk about porn a lot, but advertisement, it's done through social status and all this sort of stuff. And we are inundated with being objectified as a sexual object from birth, really. We're done it so that we could be sold things. It's really, really terrible. Now, myself, I am a capitalist. I make money in all these different ways. I'm not against that. But the inability to see that we do this over and over again, and that's not causing a problem. It's just ridiculous. The fact that we don't get that. We say it's feminism. We say that we have rights as a man. We're repressed as men. So when we get into our pain as men, we start at a point where we are in pain. I get that this is a long video and I'm just kind of getting to the point. I really apologize. I really think about this. You should just join my groups and come on my calls because we work through this stuff at in-depth levels. But we start at a point of pain. That point of pain tells us that we need to have sex, we need to go fuck, we need to be in love, we need to do whatever. And that's where you need to start. You can gain sexual health from any point where you're starting at. And this is really, really important. We need to start with where we are at. If that goal and that drive is to be able to have sex with multiple partners, to be promiscuous, to only get tens, whatever, I get it. These are all fantasies. They're all things that your brain is telling you that are going to calm down, but we have to start there. And when we truly earnestly start on that road, we can get to a point where we start to get relief and realize that's not really what we want. I know you don't want to hear that, but that is the reality. I have more success and more experience than most coaches out there. And if not all, it's a huge career that I've built. This is a massive, massive thing. We have to start where the pain is telling us to go. We have to seek it. And at some point, when we get results of that, we're going to realize that's not the real issue. Now, there's a second thing that goes into this, which is really important. And this is the exploration of self within that. Why do I want these things? Why do I want sex in this way? What is this going to do for me? What are multiple women going to do? And it's not just like have the power that was taken away from me. It's got to be like, no, man, it's going to fulfill something personally in me. Now, I want to get to this because everything that we do in my groups is to go deep within yourself. Why? Is that just to go deep and to spin the cycle in your head about something? No, it's because you are a human being. You are a man. If you're a woman in our groups, you're a woman. You are somebody who was given a great power of life, a great power of thought, a great power of the use of your body, a great power of your sex, a great power of all of your intellect. And if we do not start thinking that our human expression is so honorable and valuable, we'll never seek to make it good. So I was born with a power. How can I become the person to carry that power? How can I become that man? I hear all these guys talk about stoicism. I hear all these guys talk about, higher level philosophy, but nobody works it. In order to do that, we examine ourselves. We examine who we are. We examine why we want things. We purify our thoughts and our desires, not in the definition of what PC culture tells us for it to be, but we purify why we want to fuck, why we want to masturbate, why we want to abstain from that, why we want to be men, why we have ambition, what that really is. Is there insecurity in our ambition? Is there insecurity in our purpose? Is there a lack? Is there a pain? Is there something that is dragging us back that we cannot look at? If we hold on to any of that, we absolutely flaw ourselves. We flaw our trajectory. We flaw the manifestation of the reality that we create. We as men, we need to be strong. We need to think that way. Our sex is our power. It's our identity. If we lose the true expression of the masculine and feminine, we lose everything. And we live in the distortion that we call reality. And we start coming up with reactions like extremist feminism, like things like the red pill, like men's movements, like get out of debt and your life is going to be great self-help spam. And this is what we call reality. And we try and seek happiness in that. You were born with everything that you need to feel happy, to feel complete, to feel full, to lead a family, to feel like you have worth in this society and culture today. But it's time that you start making the choice to live that. In any case, gentlemen, we have groups that do this. Check the links down below. If you want to get into a community of men that has been doing this and working this for 14, 15 years, that is the Rising Man. That's where we start. It's a monthly charge. You can fill up your car's tank of gas for the monthly fee for something that will absolutely change your life. If you're going through a divorce and a custody battle, it will save you tens of thousands of dollars. Why do I say that? Because we've done it over and over again. If you're really serious about men's development and diving deep and getting into very, very personal, intimate coaching with me, that's Men's Development Excellence. That's a bigger commitment. That is a monthly charge of $250 a month, or at the time I'm recording this, it might be on a sale or something like that, but definitely give it a check. But that's a huge commitment. That is a big commitment for you to dive deep into yourself and radically change your life. And if you want to move forward in all the different ways that propel masculinity forward, I would highly encourage you to check out this video here. It's going to talk about how we take ourselves and communicate that to the world. Have a good one, guys.